Hey scholars, this is your new book today. I Could Do That is another biography. It is about Esther Morris. She Gets the Vote by Linda Arms White and pictures by Nancy Carpenter. Here is a picture of the cover of the book. Like I said, it's a biography. That means it is a true story. Here are the skills that we're working on today. We have retell. What is retell? I can retell a text. Retell means to tell the most important parts of a text in order. How do you do it? Tell about the major events in the beginning, middle, and end of the text. Include main idea, important details, and facts. Why do we do it? Good readers retell a story. Help them remember all the important parts of a story. We have another skill as well, key details. What is it? Identify key details of a text. Key details tell us the most important information about a subject. How do we do it? Name what the topic of a text is mostly about. Ask, what are the most important details about this topic? Why do we do it? Identifying details help readers better understand the text. So, we are going to get started. I do not have all the pictures in here today, so I will move the story along as we have the pictures. So here we go. In 1820, 6-year-old Esther McQuigg studied her mother making tea. I could do that, she said. Make tea, said Mama. The older girls do that. But I want to learn, said Esther, and she did. She pumped the water into the kettle and set it on the wood stove to boil. She scooped tea leaves into the teapot, then poured steaming water over them. Esther strained the tea into cups, one for her mother, one for herself. As they sat near the window of their New York house, Esther saw men riding by in their best suits, some carrying flags. "Where are those men going, Mama?" asked Esther. "They're going to vote for the next president of the United States," Mama said. "Will Papa vote?" "Yes, Papa always votes." "Will you vote, Mama?" "No, dear. Only men can vote." When Esther was 8, she watched her mother sew a fine seam. The needle pulled thread in and out, striking tiny, even stitches across the fabric. Esther felt her hands mimicking her mother's. Mimicking means she's pretending to do what she does. "I could do that," she said, and she did. She made clothes for her dolls from scratch. When her stitches became neat and straight, she sewed a shirt for her papa. This is the picture when I'm on. When Esther was 11, her mother died, and for the first time she saw her father cry. He gathered his 11 children together. "I don't know what we'll do without your mama," he said. "I'm depending on each of you to be brave and take care of one another." Esther, who was the eighth of the 11 children, cried too. But she said, "I can do that, Papa," and she did. All right, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to have a think aloud. Let me think what's happened so far. I know, so I could retell the text. I need to figure out key details from the beginning, middle, and the end. I know the topic is Esther Morris because this is a biography and it tells about her life. Let me think about big ideas that are being repeated in the beginning, middle, and the end. I keep hearing Esther say the words, "I can do that." This is also the title of the text. It seems pretty important. First, Esther learned how to make tea even though she was just a toddler. She said, "I can do that." Then she learned how to sew. Now she's going to take care of her whole family after her mother passed away. Even though she's not the oldest child, she told her dad, "I can do that." Seems like Esther is very brave and determined. Anything she sets her mind to, she accomplishes. Let me think. I think the major details in the beginning of a story, Esther Morris was a girl with a lot of gumption. People with gumption are determined and full of courage. Esther had gumption because she was determined to do anything that she wanted. All right, we're going to keep going. I'm going to keep you on this picture until I get the next one. When Esther was 19, she was 6 foot tall and on her own. She earned a living making dresses for society ladies. When the ladies wanted the hats to make their dresses, she designed and made those too. Soon she opened up her own shop. "You're much too young to run a business," she was told. "I don't see why," said Esther's reply. And with that, she opened a hat shop in Owata, New York. Esther started attending abolitionist meetings at her church. But a throng of people who believed in the right to own slaves threatened to stop meetings. Even if they had to turn on the Baptist church they were held. You can't do that, said Esther, and I'll stop anyone who tries. When Esther was 27, she married Artemis, and a few years later they had a son called Archie. But when Artemis died in an accident, Esther made a big decision. I'm going to move to Illinois, she told her friends, and I'll claim the land Artemis owned there and raised our son. You can't do that, they said. And she said, Yes, I will. And that's what she did. In Illinois, she fought long and hard to claim Artemis's land, but it was denied her inheritance because she was a girl. So Esther opened another hat shop. Esther married a man named John Morris, a merchant immigrant from Poland. In 1851, she gave birth to twin boys, Edward and Robert. But John had a hard time making a living. So while Esther raised the children, cooked meals, and washed clothes, she also helped earn money. When Esther was 46, she went with John to vote for the presidential election. She watched through the window while he voted. You know, she told him, I could do that. Politics is the business of men, my dear, he said. Huh, said Esther, it's our country too. When war broke out between northern and southern states, Esther proudly waved as her son Archie joined the victorious fight of the North to end slavery. Soon after amendment to Constitution granted Negro men all rights of citizenship, including the right to vote. When Esther heard Susan B. Anthony speaking about women's rights, she hoped she could vote someday too. This is the page I'm on right now. In 1869, when Esther was 55, she and her 18-year-old sons moved to Wyoming, where John and Archie, who'd gone there before, waited for her. Esther and the boys traveled by train across miles of prairie, then by stage over rocky hills to South Pass City. And Hurley built a town where dust had been found, where gold had been found. Most of 2,000 people who lived there were rowdy. That means they were kind of like crazy men. They worked by mines by day and drank in the saloons by night. All right, so I'm thinking aloud here. Esther and her family moved to Wyoming because they thought they could make a better living. The town was near a gold mine. This means that most of the people lived in the town that also worked in the gold mine. That means they're searching for these little pieces of shiny rocks called gold. And back then, if you turned the gold end, you would get money for it. So this is like a town out west with horses and mountains and things like that. So I'm going to keep going. Oh, this is the page we're on. The Morrises moved their belongings into a small log cabin in South Pass City became a home. John ran a saloon. Berkeley bought a printing press and started a newspaper. Esther, well, she opened another hat shop. But with 6 men to every woman, there was always need for someone to nurse the sick and wounded and sew clothes. Esther, she helped deliver babies and give motherly advice to the few young women in town. I could do that, said Esther, and she did. So Esther did it again. She helped the women of Wyoming, such as helping them with babies, and of course the hat shop. So now, one day, Esther read a proclamation tacked to the wall. All male citizens 21 and older called to vote in the territory election. She looked around. It's time I did that, she said. When Esther's sons watched her march toward home, they knew it was more than likely things were going to change. Esther invited 2 men running the legislation to her house to speak to the citizens. She sent out invitations to the most influential people in the territory. Come for tea and talk to the candidates. She scrubbed her home from top to bottom and ironed her best dress. Oh, that was the page that said they were giving everyone a right to vote. It says it right here. Oopsie. It says it right here in this sign. Hmm. Trying to draw here. Well, in the sign it says who gives you a right to vote. The next page is her having the men to tea. When the candidates and guests arrived, Esther served them tea. One thing I like about Wyoming, she said, is how everyone is important. It takes all of us to run the town, women as well as men. Yes, yes, her guest agreed. It's a place where people aren't afraid to try new things. Esther smiled. She turned to the candidates and said, if you were elected, would you introduce a bill that would allow women to vote? Suddenly, in that room, that tiny room full of people, not a sound was heard. Finally, Colonel William Bright spoke. Mrs. Morris, my wife would like to vote too. She is intelligent and well educated. Truth be told, she'd be more informed voter than I. If I am elected, I will introduce the bill. Not wanting to be outdone, the other candidate, Herman Nicholson, said he agreed. Applause broke out in the tiny cabin, and Esther dropped to her chair. Thank you, she said. People warned her that once a bill was introduced, men would have to approve it, and the governor would have to sign it. This never happened anywhere. Why did she think this would happen here? Esther had seen things that were likely not to happen every day. She wrote letters and visited legislators to make sure this bill would happen too. And it did. On December 10th, 1869, Governor Campbell signed the bill. Wyoming women get the vote. Women across the country rejoice. Yeehaw, yippee, hurrah, hurrah. So Esther did it. She helped women get the right to vote. This is a huge accomplishment because now women could have a say just like men. It seemed everyone was happy with the decision. Here is the next page, but some people didn't like it. Only 8 days later, Judge James Tillman, the country's justice of the peace, turned in and resigned. He refused administrative justice in a place where women helped make the laws. Word went out that the new justice of the peace was needed. Esther's boys turned to her. Mama, you could do that, they said. And so she applied. Archie, then clerk of the court, proudly swore his mother in, and she held her first public office. But Judge Stillman refused to turn over the docket to Esther. Never mind, she said. Archie, would you please go get me a ledger? I'll start my earned docket. And of course he did. On September 6th, 1870, 1 year after her tea party, Judge Esther Morris put on her best dress and walked with her husband John and her sons down the dusty streets of the polling place. She'd be one of 1,000 women voting that day, the first ever given the right by any governing body in the U.S. As they walked, John, who still didn't think women should vote, tried to coach her on candidates who she should vote for. Esther held up her hand. I can do this, she said. And she did. Wow, that was an amazing story. That was an amazing story. She always had a lot of gumption, that Esther. No matter what Esther set in her mind, anything she accomplished. When Esther was older, she opened her hat store. Everywhere she traveled, Esther started stores, helped deliver babies, took care of a sick, and raised her family. It seemed like she did it all. However, nothing was as important to Esther as getting the right to vote. When her family was living in Wyoming, Esther helped pass a law that gave women the right to vote. She worked hard to get it passed because when it became law, some people were unhappy. Esther took his place after the judge resigned. Astor was the very first woman to ever vote in office. That was a lot to retell. That was really, really, really good. I like his biography because it's about a woman, and I did not know the story at all. I will see you again tomorrow, first grade.